Dawn breaks over the Pacific. The horizon glows faintly orange, waves glinting like molten steel beneath the rising sun. A United States Navy carrier strike group moves steadily forward, the thrum of engines echoing through the ocean. On the deck of the carrier, rows of fighter jets sit armed and ready, their sleek silhouettes waiting for orders that may never come, or may arrive in the blink of an eye. It is a picture of strength, discipline, and power. Yet beneath that calm surface lies the oldest truth of naval warfare. The ocean hides enemies as easily as it carries allies. Beyond the horizon, in waters as vast as nations, an adversary waits unseen, patient, calculating. History has shown what happens when vigilance falters at dawn. In 1941, Pearl Harbor awoke to fire and devastation. In the Falklands, warships were scarred by missiles that appeared without warning. Time and again, the quiet before sunrise has been the prelude to sudden violence. On this morning, the silence is deceptive. The radars hum softly. The sea breeze carries nothing but salt and spray. But the trap is already set. The ambush, when it comes, will not only test the steel of ships or the power of missiles. It will test the endurance, the will, and the very doctrine of the U.S. Navy itself. This is the story of an ambush at dawn, and the shocking aftermath that shook the world. The modern U.S. Navy is built around the carrier strike group, a floating fortress of power projection. At its heart, the nuclear-powered supercarrier, carrying over 70 aircraft, from stealthy F-35Cs to electronic warfare Growlers and early warning E-2 Hawkeyes. Surrounding it, a shield of destroyers and cruisers, their Aegis radar systems capable of tracking hundreds of airborne threats at once. Beneath the waves, an attack submarine prowls silently, ready to intercept hostile vessels. Together, they represent one of the most sophisticated naval formations in history. But no force, no matter how advanced, is invulnerable. History has taught this lesson time and time again. In 1941, the Japanese Navy proved that even battleships could be humbled in a single morning. During the Falklands War, Britain's fleet discovered the deadly reach of sea-skimming missiles. And in the Gulf War, America itself demonstrated how precision strikes could shatter an opponent's defenses before they even fired back. On this day, somewhere in contested waters, that cycle was about to repeat. Intelligence had warned of potential hostile activity, unconfirmed chatter, radar anomalies, whispers of fast attack craft massing in hidden coves. But the vastness of the ocean often makes certainty elusive. The U.S. carrier group continued on course, maintaining readiness yet unaware that an ambush was already in motion. It began with silence. Then came the radar echoes, faint, fast-moving signatures hugging the sea. Moments later, missile plumes split the horizon. The ambush had been sprung. Dozens of anti-ship missiles screamed toward the carrier group, launched from hidden coastal batteries, disguised fishing vessels, and long-range bombers lurking just beyond detection. Sea skimming at near supersonic speeds, they raced low over the waves, designed to slip beneath radar coverage until the last possible second. The Aegis destroyers sprang into action. Vertical launch cells opened, hurling interceptor missiles skyward. CIWS gun systems, the last line of defense, spun to life, spewing streams of tungsten at incoming threats. The sky turned into a deadly chessboard of offense and defense, technology against technology, seconds determining survival. The carrier itself became a hive of controlled chaos. Pilots scrambled to their aircraft, engines roaring, deck crews waving frantic signals. Electronic warfare suites unleashed torrents of jamming signals, attempting to blind the enemy's missile seekers. But the volume of fire was staggering, far more than expected, suggesting a coordinated, premeditated strike designed not just to wound, but to overwhelm. This was no random skirmish. It was an ambush meant to test America's naval shield at its breaking point. Shock quickly gave way to response. Within minutes, the carrier group transitioned from defense to retaliation. The first wave of F/A-18 Super Hornets roared into the sky, flanked by stealthy F-35s armed with precision-guided munitions. Electronic attack aircraft spread wide, their role to jam enemy radars and disrupt communication networks. The counterstrike was not random. It followed the Navy's doctrine of layered suppression. First, eliminate the missile launchers along the coastlines. Second, silence the hostile radar stations guiding the barrage. Third, cripple the supply lines feeding this assault. Each strike package was carefully assigned, pilots executing maneuvers drilled countless times, but now under the real fog of combat. Below, the submarines began their deadly hunt. Advanced sonar detected the telltale echoes of diesel-electric attack craft lurking beneath the surface. Torpedoes streaked into the depths, detonating with thunderous eruptions that sent plumes of seawater skyward. For the carrier group, survival was not enough. They had to seize back initiative. History showed that hesitation in the face of an ambush can be fatal. By striking back decisively, they aimed to shatter the enemy's momentum and send a clear message. America's naval power could bend, but it would not break. The ocean itself became a battlefield. Enemy fast attack boats, packed with rockets and machine guns, darted out from hidden coves, attempting to close distance with the carrier group. It was asymmetric warfare, small, expendable vessels challenging billion-dollar warships. The destroyers responded with overwhelming firepower. Naval guns thundered, shredding swarms of boats at long range. Helicopters lifted off, armed with Hellfire missiles that struck fast and precise. Overhead, drones provided live targeting data, ensuring every hostile craft was tracked and engaged. Yet amidst the chaos, a single missile slipped through. A cruiser shuddered as fire erupted across its deck. Damage control crews rushed into action, battling flames and sealing bulkheads to keep the ship afloat. Even as alarms blared, the crew's discipline held, every man and woman trained for this exact nightmare scenario. It was here that the human element became undeniable. Technology can intercept, armor can absorb, but in the end, survival depended on sailors willing to face smoke, fire, and steel in the fight to save their ship. And they did. Against the backdrop of burning wreckage, the U.S. fleet held formation, determined not to yield. In the chaos of battle, the difference between victory and defeat often comes down to seconds. The choices made in a moment that ripple for decades. As the ambush dragged into its second hour, the U.S. strike group faced a decision point. Enemy missiles had struck close, one destroyer was wounded, and the carrier itself bore scars along her armored decks. The sea had become a maze of smoke, debris, and contrails. But in that crucible, the Navy's tactical doctrine revealed its strength. Commanders aboard the cruiser USS Bunker Hill recalibrated radar and electronic warfare suites to blind the hostile targeting systems. A wall of electromagnetic interference surged across the battlespace, like a shield unseen to the human eye, yet decisive in breaking missile locks. At the same time, the destroyer USS Arleigh Burke, already bruised but unbowed, surged forward into the kill zone. Its 5-inch guns barked thunder across the water, targeting not ships but the smaller swarm craft and drone motherships suspected of coordinating the assault. The Navy calls it, punching the archer, not the arrow. And in this moment, it worked. Enemy command vessels found themselves isolated, their comms jammed, their formations crumbling. From above, A-18 Super Hornets screamed downward in tight strike packages, releasing precision-guided bombs that lit the dawn horizon in blossoms of orange and white. One by one, hostile fast attack boats vanished beneath columns of water, shattered by ordnance that seemed to tear the ocean open itself. It was not without cost. Several Hornets took damage, forced to limp back toward the carrier with fuel lines cut and hydraulic systems bleeding out. On deck, damage control crews braced for crash landings, men and women in flame retardant suits running into danger with hoses, axes, and stretchers. The smell of burning jet fuel mixed with salt water, a scent etched forever in the memories of survivors. But slowly, inexorably, the tide turned. What had begun as a well-coordinated ambush devolved into a scattered retreat. The enemy's timing, so precise at dawn, slipped under pressure. Ships broke formation, firing sporadically, as the combined hammer of naval gunfire and aerial strikes pressed them back. And through it all, the carrier itself, that floating city of steel, remained the anchor. Her presence alone was defiance. Her survival, in the face of surprise and fury, proved that doctrine, training, and sheer resilience could outlast even the most sophisticated ambush. When the last echoes of gunfire faded and the horizon cleared, the U.S. fleet was still afloat. But survival did not mean unscathed. Across the decks of every vessel, the cost of the dawn ambush was visible: twisted steel, charred compartments, sailors bandaged and bloodied, eyes still wide with the adrenaline of near death. The carrier's flight deck bore scars where fragments of shrapnel had raked across jet fuel lines. The destroyer's hull gaped where an anti-ship missile had struck, flooding compartments that damaged control crews had fought desperately to contain. Below decks, pumps roared against rising seawater. Above, smoke drifted in thin, gray ribbons into the morning sky. Yet as battered as the ships were, their survival was itself a message. The world watched in real time, satellite feeds, leaked footage, and social media clips spreading like wildfire. Analysts on global networks spoke of a Pearl Harbor that failed, an attempt to cripple the Navy's sword arm that instead showcased its resilience. In capitals across the globe, the lessons were not lost. Allies studied the ambush with alarm, realizing that even the most advanced fleets could be vulnerable to asymmetric tactics. Swarms of small craft, salvos of missiles, and stealth drones launched from unexpected vectors. Adversaries, meanwhile, measured their failure, recalculating strategies and preparing for the next contest of wills at sea. For the sailors themselves, the aftermath was quieter, more human. Triage stations filled with the wounded. Shipmates carried the bodies of the fallen, draped in flags, down steel corridors echoing with silence. Chaplains whispered prayers over the injured. Messages were drafted to families who would never again see their loved ones return. But even amidst grief, a strange pride lingered. They had been ambushed, yes. Surprised, yes. But they had not been destroyed. Against the fire of dawn, they had held. Against odds that should have crippled them, they had endured. The global headlines declared shock, awe, and speculation. Some questioned whether the age of carriers was over, whether these floating fortresses had become relics in an age of hypersonic missiles. Others pointed to the morning's outcome and declared the opposite, that even under saturation assault, even when blindsided, a U.S. carrier strike group could not be easily broken. For the Navy, the ambush became more than just an engagement. It became a case study, a training lesson, and a warning written in smoke across the Pacific dawn. The ambush at dawn ended not with the destruction of a fleet, but with the survival of one. Yet survival does not mean invincibility. For the carrier strike group, it was a day that revealed both the cracks in even the strongest armor and the unbreakable resolve of those who wear the uniform. When the smoke cleared and the seas grew calm again, the U.S. Navy was left to count the costs, injured sailors, damaged steel, and the sobering memory of just how close disaster had come. But in that crucible of fire and uncertainty, discipline and training carried the day. It was not just missiles and warships that preserved the fleet, it was the courage and endurance of men and women who refused to yield. For the world, the images of that morning carried shockwaves. The sight of America's floating fortress under siege stirred old memories of surprise attacks that had reshaped history. Commentators called it a warning shot to the 21st century. Strategists debated whether carrier groups, once symbols of unstoppable dominance, had now entered an era of vulnerability. And yet, despite all the doubts, one truth remained. The carrier and her escorts sailed on. Scarred, yes, but afloat. Shaken, yes, but unbroken. As they turned into the horizon, their silhouettes against the evening sun told a story that went beyond weaponry. It was the story of resilience, of a navy forged in crisis, and of a lesson the world would not soon forget. Because naval warfare is never just about the clash of steel or the range of missiles. It is about deterrence, psychology, and perception. An ambush can stun, a strike can damage, but survival can inspire. The question is no longer whether the U.S. Navy can withstand an ambush. The question is, what comes next? In a world where technology evolves faster than treaties, and where the seas grow more contested with each passing year, the next confrontation may not be an ambush at dawn, but a showdown at dusk, or a battle that never truly ends. This was not just a clash on the seas. It was a glimpse into the battles of tomorrow. If this story gripped you, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Join the discussion in the comments. Do you think carrier strike groups are still the ultimate weapon of naval dominance, or are they becoming relics in an age of hypersonic missiles and drone swarms?